possible. We now come to the backbench debate on matters to be raised before the forthcoming adjournment. Bob Blackman to move.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I beg to move that this House has considered matters to be raised before the forthcoming adjournment. It only seems like a few days ago that we were actually having the pre-conference recess debate. Yet here we are in the final days of 2024, and what a busy year it's been for all of us. So we've had general elections, mayoral elections, leadership contests, Gnarly, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, the Paris Olympics, President Trump returning to the White House. Still no trophy for Spurs, but perhaps we can put that right in 2025. So I'd like to thank everyone who's played a part in making 2024 so special. The catering staff, the house staff, the clerks, the workmen, the staff in the post offices, the hairdressers, bars and shops on site, the security teams, the doorkeepers, the Speaker and Deputy Speakers and their staff, my colleagues and all their staff. So I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas, relaxing with loved ones, friends and family. And I wish everyone the happiest of New Year's with peace, health and prosperity. But at this time of year, we should also think of those that are far less fortunate than ourselves. Now, I've been pleased to take up the role of Chairman of the Backbench Business Committee this year, following the footsteps of the former member for Gateshead, after he stood down after serving 9 years as Chairman. I pay tribute to his hard work over that time, ensuring backbenchers were able to bring their issues to the floor of the House, and I intend to do so in that capacity as well. And as it is Christmas, I must say that my display of a Christmas to this position saw off all the competition. The rest of my committee and clerks have been invaluable in the transition. I look forward to continuing our work in the new year. Another addition to my CV this year has been assuming the role of chairman of the prestigious, well I would call it prestigious, 1922 committee. And I'm pleased that we've welcomed our new leader, the Right Honourable Member for Saffron Walden, who's made a really good start to the 5 weeks since she was elected. I hope the members opposite don't get too comfy on those green benches, as we're going to be back in short order. I'd also like to thank my fellow officers, namely the Honourable Members for Cotswold North and Stockton West, for their help and counsel over the past few months. It's certainly been a busy introduction to the job. Now, on the subject of London, Transport for London has continued to be run into the ground, with spending priorities that are short-term, political and simply vain. The refurbishment of the Central Line needs to be expedited. This is badly needed because it's my understanding there are literally no more spare DC motors for the 1992 stock available, necessitating them to be converted to AC motors as a matter of priority. That may sound not so important, but the project's been going on for the last 5 years, and TfL now have a completion date of 2029 for the project. This is outrageous. The Piccadilly line is 4 years behind schedule. The new trains will not come into force until the end of next year. They were supposed to come in 2011, and now TfL are saying they don't have funding to upgrade the signalling either. The Bakerloo line has the oldest working trains in regular service in the UK, and if you've travelled on them, you know how bad they are. And yet TfL ducked the question to replace them, again citing funding as the reason. There are no plans to replace the 1972 stock, which many of my constituents have to use from stations in my constituency. But there was money, Madam Deputy Speaker, for Mayor Khan to pay off his union paymasters. There's also money to pay for a costly election year's fares freeze gimmick. There's money to spend £7 million on a vanity project regarding the London Overground, to say nothing of the choice of the line names themselves, which are at best virtue signalling and worst extremely confusing. You'll be delighted to hear I'm not going to bore the House with a history of the names of the London Underground lines, but it's true to say they're either historically derived or named after royalty. These certainly are not. I'm therefore disappointed that the government sees fit to reward this wanton destruction of TfL with a promotion for the former Deputy Mayor for Transport, she's new Transport Secretary, and a possible knighthood, we hear, for the man in charge of it all. Now, nearly 200,000 people have already signed a petition calling on the government to reconsider, and I wholeheartedly agree. Indeed, I'd be more than happy to recommend colleagues on the other side of the House who would be far more deserving of knighthood than Mayor Khan is. We should also remember at this time of year the violence that's being implemented on Hindus and other minorities in Bangladesh, and the attacks in Canada. Can you believe Canada? Attacks on Jews and Hindus in their synagogues and temples. This is an outrageous position. Now, we're all conscious in this House of the escalating situation in the Middle East, but there's a clear and present danger that if terrorists remain in Gaza, the conflict cannot have a long-term solution, and indeed could drag Hezbollah, Iran, and the extremist forces into the Middle East into a full-scale war with Israel, which none of us want to see. We should understand that the regime in Tehran is pure skibbity. And on the 25th of June, the party opposite promised that if they were elected, they would prescribe the IRGC in its entirety, as many of us had been calling on previous Conservative governments to do so for a number of years. On the 8th of July, The Guardian reported that the government would not prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist group in its entirety, completely U-turning on their promise. I call on the government now to correct this error of judgment sooner rather than later. Now, I was honoured to meet Mandy Damari recently, a woman with Riz, an inspiringly brave woman whose daughter, Emily Damari, is still held hostage in Gaza. Emily is the last British hostage in Gaza. She's an avid Tottenham fan, and an innocent young girl was taken from her apartment on the 7th of October 2023, has not been returned. She's been shot and wounded and not given medical treatment. It's totally unimaginable what she is going through. We must not let Emily be forgotten, and I urge the government to work with the Israeli government to ensure a safe return as soon as possible. The longer Emily is captive, the slimmer her chances become, and the longer she has to endure such dark days. So my thoughts and prayers remain with the Damari family and those who've lost loved ones due to terrorism. Another issue that the government need to reconsider, given the current situation globally, is their defence spending commitments, or lack of. Their promise was they were committed to spending 2.5% of GDP on defence as soon as they could. Now that's changed to having a roadmap to achieving it. We need this in this uncertain world to be accelerated, not delays. And we already heard this afternoon, the MOD faces a large funding gap in the current financial year, and in 2025-26, in December, the National Audit Office identified a deficit in the equipment plan of £3 billion for the current year and a further deficit of £3.9 billion for the following year. The MOD will also have to find an extra £1 billion each year to fund the above budgeted costs of the 2023 and 2024 pay settlements for the armed forces. This is such an important point that the national interest should not be subject to party politics or spending reviews. In my opinion, the money should be ring-fenced. Now, on January 27th next year, we mark Holocaust Memorial Day, and I'm pleased that throughout January there'll be a range of activities to mark this, including the annual Book of Commitment, which I would urge all colleagues, especially colleagues that are new to the House, to sign and place their commitment to combating anti-Semitism and hatred of people because of their religion, race or background. It's saddening that the tensions in the Middle East are so frequently spilling over onto our streets, with anti-Semitic behaviour rising by over 500% compared to the pre-7th of October levels. We must stand up to this abominable behaviour, not allowing any hate crimes to take place, regardless of race or religion. Now, during this festive period, it is particularly important to share a thought for those without a permanent home, or those who are sleeping rough. The winter months can be ruthless, with increased hours of darkness and plummeting temperatures. It can be an incredibly lonely period for those without any friends or a home to live in, watching everyone ignore you on the sidewalk while they enjoy quality time with their families. So I send my good wishes to my local charity Firm Foundation, who will be providing hostel accommodation once again, to Crisis and all the other homeless charities who do such good work. And if you pass anyone sleeping rough, don't just ignore them. Wish them a Merry Christmas. And that acknowledgement and few words could mean a lot to them. However, please don't give them money, give them food. Give them time and attention. I also mentioned at this time that the government still, despite my prompting, haven't implemented the Supported Housing Regulatory Oversight Act of 2023, which is my private member's bill. I look forward to that happening in 2025. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to thank all of those in my constituency for all their hard work over the last year. The support from councillors and activists every weekend as we continue to knock on residents' doors is invaluable and greatly appreciated. The general election, it's fair to say, was very tough for my party, and I'm sorry to have seen so many great colleagues depart this place. I look forward to many of them returning. I'm eternally grateful that we bucked the trend in Harrow East and increased my majority. I'm eternally grateful to everyone that helped, come rain or shine, during the time. I'd also like to thank, obviously, the residents of Harrow East for not only showing up to vote for me, but also for the thousands that completed my surveys, not on a range of issues. I've taken those issues up and are organising meetings with appropriate people to make sure we get results for local people. And I never take this wonderful job for granted. And come 2025, I'll be working tirelessly, standing up for the people of Harrow East, as I expect all constituency members to do. Now, I'm delighted that the government have got the tobacco and vapes bill through to the committee stage of this House, and I welcome the government's ambition to inherit the goals of the previous government's administration to eradicate smoking from society and tackle youth vaping. I look forward to continue to work on this bill, scrutinising and ensuring that all appropriate amendments are adopted to ensure we get a smoke-free society in our lifetimes. And I'd particularly like to pay tribute to my friends Ash, who've been tireless in providing briefings, meeting and hosting events for colleagues, and I. In particular, Deborah Arnott, who retired this year earlier after so many years leading the organisation. I recently visited the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore for a very productive meeting. I spoke at great length with Paul Fish, the CEO of the hospital, and we discussed the future plans and improvements to the hospital. Now, many of the outbuildings are in dire need of investment to ensure patient care is maximised. Back in 2015, I led the campaign to get the hospital rebuilt, which the Care Quality Commission at the time had deemed was not fit for purpose. I'm delighted that the last government allocated £42.5 million to rebuild the main site into a state-of-the-art centre it is now, supporting literally thousands of people every year with their problems. As a fan of technology, I was particularly interested to walk around the new X-ray wing with their 3 new scanners, all specialising for different intricate requirements. And often we downplay what the health service does in these specialist areas. So, as I reach the end of my remarks, Madam Deputy Speaker, as you'll be delighted to hear, I pay tribute to our great friend, the late great Sir David Ynys, who so loved these debates. May he rest in peace and remain in our thoughts. I'd also like to thank everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, which starts on Christmas Day. And I hope that everyone can enjoy some rest, a well-deserved break, enjoying good food and good company, and we'll have the debate on obesity and food strategy when we come back after Christmas. So I also wish everyone a very happy New Year. So may 2025 be filled with positivity, peace, health and happiness.
The question is as on the order paper, and I'd like to ask members to invoke the spirit of Christmas by helping each other out and to keep their contributions to around 4 minutes so we can get everybody in. Valerie Vaz.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Harrow East, and again, in the best traditions of Sir David Ynys, I will be going around my constituency, and he is sorely missed here. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this really difficult time. It's a time of family. I want to raise 4 local issues, 1 international and 1 national, and a partridge in a pear tree. Sorry, that sounded better in my head. But the first local issue I wanted to talk about is the accessibility of Bescot railway station. It does not have access for disabled people or parents and carers. I first made contact, Madam Deputy Speaker, with the Minister of State for Transport in September 2022, and despite a meeting with Walsall Football Club supporters, the Disabled Football Club, Network Rail and West Midlands Combined Authority in November 23, nothing has happened. I asked Network Rail to look into the matter. They thought the solution, Madam Deputy Speaker, would be, they provide an answer in 6 months, but we're still waiting. We have legislation. It's enshrined in statute. The Railways Act 93, Human Rights Act 1998, Equality Act 2010. But I understand that Bescot Stadium Station has been put on the list for 2027. That means my poor constituents who are disabled or parents with pushchairs are going to have to wait until then. This is unacceptable, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents are not interested in a feasibility study of a feasibility study. So could I ask the Minister, who's it's very welcome to see her in her place, to raise this with the Secretary of State for Transport. The second issue is about bowel cancer. In Walsall and Bloxwich, cases of bowel cancer emergency admissions are the highest across the Black Country. In fact, they're double of the next highest. Walsall Manor is the only hospital in the Black Country that does not use robotics for bowel cancer. Why should my constituents have to travel to New Cross Hospital to access a quick, easy and cost-effective way to treat this cancer, which is the second most common cause of cancer death? So if I could ask the Minister again to raise it with the Public Health Minister, that would be very welcome. The next issue is about the use of schools and saving the taxpayer money, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sneyd Community School was closed in 2011. It was re-established as a university technical college by Wolverhampton University and Walsall College. It was closed in 2015 and is a perfectly viable school. Head teachers in the area, Madam Deputy Speaker, have suggested this could be used as a special school. Instead, public money is being used to destroy the vegetation at Reedswood Park to build a special free school. Joseph Lecky School has offered to work with the council to expand places where they're needed. In fact, they've got a waiting list of 30 places for each year. They need a new canteen, a kitchen, a new dining hall, and I've been working with them since 2010 so that they get their full allocation of building schools for the future money, which they have not got. What the headmaster has said, he hopes to fund an inspirational learning campus that is really fit for purpose. And I hope the Minister will take that back to the Secretary of State to ensure that we can all work together to ensure that public money is used to expand the current schools rather than to build a new school. Madam Deputy Speaker, our heritage in Walsall is under threat because the local council want to close the Leather Museum, move it to another area. It's the top attraction on TripAdvisor, and I would suggest honourable members come and have a visit. It's unique and it's interactive with engaging demonstrations of leathercraft. I've been told by the Worshipful Company of Saddlers that most UK businesses in the leather industry are based in Walsall, and leather goods from my constituency are sold worldwide, including Lorna, one of the companies which made the late Queen's handbags. I'm delighted that the Baroness Hodge in the other place will be reviewing the Arts Council, but as the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport said, culture, museums, arts and libraries are so important to our well-being. So could I ask the Minister again if she could raise this with the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport? The international issue I want to raise is that of Alaa Abdel Al-Fateh, who's in prison. He's a British citizen. He's in prison in Egypt. He has a 13-year-old son. He's a prisoner, an Amnesty International prisoner of conscience. He needs consular access and he needs to come home. So could I ask the Minister to ask the Prime Minister to raise this? The final issue I want to raise is that of the Year of Reading. We had the Year of Reading in 1998 to promote a culture of reading. In 2008 was to build a nation of readers. So could I ask the Minister to ask the Secretary of State for Education if she will consider having a Year of Reading, because reading for pleasure has diminished, in 2026. And finally, can I just say, wish everybody a very merry and happy Christmas, and thank everybody, all the staff here, for their help and support throughout the year, including the official reporters who are looking down, and everybody who's helped us, including my hard-working staff. I hope everyone has a very, very peaceful time, given the really hard work we've had this year. Thank you.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Ahead of the Christmas break, I'm delighted to have this opportunity today to recognise and celebrate some of the amazing organisations that serve the Scottish borders all the year round. These groups and volunteers and others that help keep them running often do not get the praise that they deserve. So today I wanted to mark the excellent work of these volunteers and organisations who provide unbelievable support to so many people all the year round. Their generosity and compassion of volunteers and workers across the borders is incredible. I want to start firstly by recognising those organisations that provide extra help to our NHS patients and their families. I was recently given the privilege of meeting some of the Margaret Care fundraising team who help support the purpose-built specialist palliative care unit at Borders General Hospital. I would encourage everyone who can give anything they can to help this wonderful group and keep the unit operating as effectively as possible for those who need treatment and care. I also want to thank the volunteers at the Borders Parkinson's Support Group. It was a pleasure to recently join them and their volunteers and service users and spend some time with those who attend. The meetings are well attended, good-natured and very sociable. So well done to the volunteers for bringing people together in this way. Now, beyond healthcare and the NHS, I also wanted to take the opportunity to recognise passionate community campaigners who want the best for the Borders and put the work in to make local projects happen. Now, the first of these fine groups is the Campaign for Borders Rail, who I've worked with for many years, who are seeking to extend the Borders Railway from HoC and onto Newcastleton and onto Carlisle. I've been doing everything I can during my time as their MP and previously as their MSP to get this extension built. It's disappointing that the new government has not yet committed to the funding that the previous government had committed to for the feasibility study, but I'll continue to push for this to be delivered. Similarly, I want to pay tribute to the Rail Action Group for the east of Scotland for their campaigns to get better train services along the east coast of Scotland, and pay tribute to their campaign to get the station reopened at Reston a couple of years ago. I want to particularly mention two stalwarts of this campaign, Barry Forrest and Tom Thorburn, who have done so much to improve rail services over many, many years. Beyond the transport network, there's lots of community groups in the Borders helping to bring people together. First, I want to mention the Men's Shed network, which has multiple locations across the Borders, which promotes the well-being and quality of life of local people. We're particularly lucky in the Borders to have the highest number, I think, of any constituency in the UK of men's sheds located in the Borders. Secondly, I want to mention Escape Youth Services in HoC, which provides incredible support to young people. I was delighted to be able to join one of their sessions recently. The young people clearly love and enjoy the activities that the dedicated team of volunteers provide for them. Just a few other groups I want to mention, those that preserve our environment, sustainable Selkirk and the Berwickshire Marine Reserve. But I also want to mention the local people who help promote our high streets, which without thriving high streets and local businesses and shops, our communities would be greatly diminished. The team behind the Llinos Business Improvement District recently had a huge success persuading local businesses to back their plans, with the general store in Selkirk and cafe recharge in Llinos. Madam Deputy Speaker, to conclude, I want to wish every member of the House a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. Christmas is a time to be thankful. I want to say a particular thanks to the UK Armed Forces personnel who will sacrifice their own festive break to serve our country. Their selfless sacrifice and dedication should be an inspiration to us all. And the same goes to those in the NHS, emergency service workers, who work through the festive period in order to keep us healthy and safe. We owe them all our gratitude for continuing to do their duty while most people take time off. Although their efforts are not as critical as our armed forces and emergency services, we should also not forget hospitality workers and small business owners who work through the festive season. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I hope we would all take the chance over Christmas to think of those less fortunate than ourselves and look out for our neighbours who may be lonely or struggling more at this time of year. Even the smallest gesture of generosity can mean a lot to someone who may not have others to look out for them. But happy Christmas to everybody.
I call Alan Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to highlight a few key issues in my constituency which I've been proud to work on since I was elected in July, and flag some issues that we intend to push in the future. I'd like to start with the Hitachi train factory in my constituency. This factory, which I've campaigned on for 2.5 years, is a source of huge pride. Many of us in this house spend a lot of our life on trains, and if you travelled with LNER, GWR, Avanti, East Midlands Rail or ScotRail, you've probably been on a train built in my hometown, in Aycliffe. That's of huge pride to the 750 workers who operate the plant, but also to the 1,500 people who work in highly skilled engineering jobs in the local supply chain. I'm incredibly grateful to the work of the Prime Minister, First Group, Angel Trains and others who came together to arrange a £500 million deal that's helped secure the future of that factory. And that's particularly important because that factory sits on the line of the original Darlington to Stockton Railway, the world's first passenger railway, which celebrates its 200th anniversary next year, which is incredibly exciting. And I'm sure across the House we can agree that if 200 years ago we were leading the world in passenger rail, I think as a country we can do that now. Yeah. So fantastic to secure that factory, and I look forward to working with ministerial colleagues and others as we continue to ensure it goes from strength to strength. But I think what we do also need to work on is to make sure that the rail manufacturing industry, not just in my constituency but in Derby and other proud railway towns, does have a sustainable future. And that's something I'd like to work with ministerial colleagues and others to ensure. The second key issue we've worked on, again to really push high-tech jobs, has been to find a future for the Octric semiconductor factory in Aycliffe. This was opened by the late Queen in 1991, had some fantastic commercial orders from Apple and others, but crucially was making semiconductors for our future fighter jet programmes that we as the United Kingdom are developing with our allies. After commercial contracts were moved abroad, there was a real threat to the semiconductor supply that's critical for our defence capabilities. I'd like to put on record my thanks to my honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, for stepping in to secure this plan, to secure the sovereign supply of these crucial components which are central to our defence. And I was very grateful to meet my right honourable friend, the Minister for Defence Procurement and Industry last week, to talk about how going forward we can expand the skilled jobs and opportunities and apprenticeships in that factory and the contribution it can make to our national defence. But again, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think there are real opportunities in the defence sector and in defence-adjacent companies to make sure that we can provide more support, more opportunities, more chance for innovation. In Net Park, in my constituency, just outside the village of Sedgefield, we've got some incredible businesses at Durham University spin-outs, making satellite technology, making radiation detection equipment that's used in Ukraine, making a huge contribution to the defence of the UK and our allies. But some of those businesses, because they're SMEs, have said they find it sometimes easier to contract with NASA than with the MOD. I'm very grateful for the work that Defence Ministers are doing to look into this, but we must open up more opportunities for small and medium enterprise to contribute to our defence and innovation in that sector. On the topic of defence, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've thoroughly enjoyed taking part in the RAF strand of the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme and would like to pay tribute to all the service personnel I've had the honour to meet around our country. When elected, I did not expect to go to Anglesey by Chinook. I did not expect to jump off a 5-storey platform to sample basic parachute training, but what a privilege to see firsthand not just some of the activities of our forces, but some of the fantastic capabilities we have around the country. And can I associate myself with the comments made by a previous honourable member in asking everyone in this House to remember that while we hopefully have some downtime over Christmas, our armed forces here and around the world remain on 24-hour alert to defend us and defend our allies, and our thanks go to them for all the work they do. Moving, Madam Deputy Speaker, to some Christmas cheer, members will be relieved to hear that I've decided, after much thought, not to release a Christmas single in the public interest. But I would like to pay tribute to Spennymoor Town Band and Spennymoor Youth Band, who put on a fantastic brass band concert on Saturday. I want to pay tribute to them, not just for the quality of music they provide, but the fantastic work that brass bands like Spennymoor Town Band do to train up the next generation of young musicians, to provide free music lessons in communities where many parents would struggle to give access to such high-quality tuition. The musical culture of our communities in County Durham is absolutely vital, and can I put on record my thanks to Spennymoor Town Band and Youth Band for all their work. In particular, Hugh Stevenson, their President, and Fiona Casewell, their Musical Director. Can I conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, by wishing you, your fellow Deputy Speakers and Mr Speaker, and all the House staff a very Merry Christmas, and wish all members a very Happy New Year.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Earlier this year, I initiated a Westminster Hall debate on headlight glare and the increasing road safety risks resulting from modern vehicle headlights. I did so having read an article in my local newspaper, the Grimsby Telegraph, that was reporting on a study carried out by the Royal Automobile Club. It emerged from the debate that the Department of Transport is undertaking research. Last week, during the business statement, I raised this matter with the Leader of the House, and I appreciated her reply saying that she would get the Minister to follow up. But I was planning on raising it in this debate anyway, so I'll look forward to receiving that update. But I hope that mentioning it yet again today will keep it on the department's agenda. Now, we all know that lighting technology has changed considerably in the last decade or so, and clearly it's to everyone's advantage that vehicles are well lit, particularly so for pedestrians. But there's no doubting that the amount of glare has increased, and the Minister who responded to my May debate acknowledged that he was receiving far more correspondence on this matter. Dr. John Lincoln of Light Aware, a charity that explore these issues, he explains that although the human eye can adapt to a wide range of light levels from bright sunlight to almost total darkness, it cannot do so in a short space of time. And he goes on to detail the various scientific issues involved. And I appreciate it's an issue that is complex, and that the department will have to do much research before introducing any regulations. But I think it is important. It's not just that the lights are now much brighter, but also that some of the vehicles seem to have far more of them than is really required. And it's also street furniture, such as road humps, where vehicles pass over them, that can glare oncoming drivers. It was last January that the RAC published the results of their research, and it showed that 89% of drivers think that some or most headlights on our roads were too bright, and 74% said that they were regularly dazzled. This may be a result in part from the fact that there are now much more larger vehicles on the roads, and they sit higher off the road. The Lightwear charity have carried out, as I mentioned a moment ago, extensive research on this, and I hope that the department will very soon conclude their own researches on it. The College of Optometrists have suggested as many as half of motorists over 60 may have early-stage cataracts in both eyes, which makes them even more vulnerable to glare from oncoming vehicles. So I hope that we can fairly rapidly conclude that research and bring forward new regulations that could improve road safety. Madam Deputy Speaker, if I could just touch on one or two constituency issues. And I'm sorry to bore members about this issue, but I can tell new members that the only way to get success in this place is often to bore the front bench so that they eventually take action. It was in 2011 that I first raised the issue of direct train services from my constituency, which was then called Cleethorpes, to King's Cross, which were withdrawn by British Rail in 1992. I'm still campaigning, Madam Deputy Speaker, and along with the Honourable Lady, my honourable friend from Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, we are now awaiting a meeting with yet another minister from the Transport Department to hopefully restore this. As you have mentioned to many Transport Secretaries over the years, my constituency actually has 10 railway stations, an international airport and the largest port in the country, and yet we still can't have a direct train service to London. It's absolutely crucial to the development of the industry in the area. It's fully supported by big business. The Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce have done much research on it, and I very much hope that that can be brought forward in the not too distant future. And I can see my time's running out, Madam Deputy Speaker, so I'll restrict myself to just one other railway issue. And it was interesting to hear the previous speaker talk about the 200th anniversary of the Stockton-Darlington Railway. As chairman of the All-Party Rail Group, I hope that we can all join together in marking that occasion. It won't be marked in Brigg, though, Madam Deputy Speaker. The rail service between Gainsborough, Brigg, Grimsby and Cleethorpes has one train per day and only allows 90 minutes to enjoy the sunny sands of Cleethorpes or the excellent shopping in Grimsby. And it is pointless running one service a day and only giving people 90 minutes. It's run for the convenience of northern trains rather than for the passengers. And I hope, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I can see the lady on the front bench nodding, that this message will get through to the Department of Transport. And with that, although I could go on for much longer, I will conclude by saying Happy Christmas to you, to all the members and staff, and a prosperous and safe New Year.
I call David Burton-Sampson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've fully enjoyed and embraced my first 5 months as Member of Parliament for Southend West and Leigh, despite, like many members, experiencing the whirlwind effect of settling into this place, setting up my new offices and recruiting my team. I've met many people and hundreds of organisations over the last 5 months, and if you'll indulge me, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to bring to the House's attention 4 amazing local projects in my constituency. The Music Man Project is a UK charity founded in Southend-on-Sea in 2000. It provides a music education and performance service for people with learning disabilities, teaching children and adults to sing, sign and play original music and new arrangements. David Stanley, who founded the project has led it from strength to strength. There are now 14 regional Music Man projects around the country, but the central hub remains in Southend. When I visit the project during rehearsals or to see one of their performances, my mood is immediately lifted and brightened. I attended their Christmas concert just last weekend, and it's simply just so amazing to see the participants all living their best lives. I'm delighted that His Majesty the King has awarded the project with the King's Award for Voluntary Services, and I'm sure, Madam Deputy Speaker, you join me in congratulating them. The late Sir David Amos, former MP for Southend West, was a trustee and a big supporter of the Music Man project. He had the vision that one day they would make it to perform on Broadway. And that's exactly what they're now aiming to do in memory of Sir David. Through the fundraising efforts, I hope they manage to make this dream a reality, as they really deserve it. So if any members would like to contribute, Madam Deputy Speaker, to getting them there, I'm sure it will be greatly appreciated. I'm equally proud of the work of Southend Food Bank, which is under the umbrella of the Trussell Trust. They have 8 outlets in Southend in total, with 5 being in my constituency. Over 20,491 emergency food parcels were provided by Southend Food Bank in the past 12 months, with over 8,000 going to children, and Southend Food Bank has sadly seen a 36% increase in the number of parcels they're distributing. Now, I thank the entire team of volunteers for their outstanding work in delivering this currently vital service, week in, week out. I'm delighted that this government has hit the ground running to tackle child poverty with the Child Poverty Task Force, and I look forward to seeing their work progressing. St Vincent's was established in 2000 in Southend and inspired by SVP work in the area. They provide 20,500 hot meals in the last year to homeless people through their Kindness Kitchen, as well as a range of other services. I want to just briefly tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, about Matt Fright, who I met at their fundraising dinner. Matt previously suffered from drug and alcohol addiction and was even caught up in drug dealing and ended up homeless. Through St Vincent's, he's now totally turned his life around and is working for them as the lead facilitator of the Smart Addiction Programme and the Hungry Cupboard Programme, which is part of their 3D printing. It's a truly wonderful story of transformation. I'm delighted to see the government announcing a near £1 billion investment for councils to break the cycle of homelessness. Finally, I want to briefly recognise Andy's Man Club, which opened in Southend in May 21 at Southend United Football Club. Andy's Man Club has groups all around the country, and it's a space where men over 18 can go and speak openly about their mental health in a non-judgmental, non-clinical environment. Men in particular find it difficult to discuss their mental health and to open up about how they're feeling. I've personally seen this, Madam Deputy Speaker, just in this last month, and the devastating effect of poor mental health going wrong, and how this has a heart-breaking effect on those who are then left behind. We need to do much more to get men talking and to open up about how they're feeling. So I'm pleased to see the Mental Health Act now making its way through the other place and reaching this place next year. As we enter the festive season, I want to thank all those in the blue light workers, hospital staff and others who will be keeping us safe and well over this Christmas season and all year round. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to wish you, the other Deputy Speakers, Mr Speaker, the House staff, all members, their teams and my wonderful team, as well as the constituents of Southend, Western Leigh, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Steff Aquarone.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Happy Christmas, everyone. Patricia is a young, intelligent woman with severe eating disorder. Despite the tireless work of professionals involved in her care, her mental health treatment needs are not being met and her progress has stalled. The East of England Provider Collaborative, responsible for referrals to specialist eating disorder units or SEDUs, is intended to ensure coordinated care close to home, yet in Patricia's case, it has failed profoundly. Since becoming involved in July, I've observed a pattern of miscommunication, delays and systemic neglect. My attempts to engage with professionals in the Cambridge and Peterborough Foundation Trust, CPFT, which provides local eating disorder services, were initially referred to lawyers, and the communications relationship between Patricia, her family and care providers is all but broken. Meanwhile, there appeared to be no overall coordination of or plan for Patricia's care. This summer, she stabilised medically during a long admission to the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. She was promised an assessment for referral to a SEDU, but faced prolonged delays only to be rejected for admission. Patricia was devastated, yet resolved to continue to seek help. At the time, I accepted that it might simply be the case that Patricia wasn't medically stable, despite this being at odds with what her clinicians at the hospital were saying. National NHS guidance requires coordinated care and efforts to reduce and prevent gaps during service transitions. Yet, Patricia's transitions between services have been anything but coordinated. Crucially, she's been denied care based on her disability and mobility needs. In meeting with those involved in her care, I sought closer collaboration between acute and mental health trusts, a patient-centred care plan, a dedicated caseworker, and the appointment of an external specialist. Instead, the response was a shared email inbox, hardly the coordinated expert oversight required. Madam Deputy Speaker, Patricia's eating disorder is not treatment-resistant or untreatable, as some have claimed. These terms lack empirical basis and perpetuate stigma. Yet Patricia's been judged for behaviours symptomatic of her condition. At one point, her care team removed her from a SEDU waiting list after she confessed to these behaviours. This stigmatising approach is unacceptable. Patricia's complex needs, including autism and pathological demand avoidance, PDA, require an integrated approach. Some of the things I and others have advocated for her to receive have been denied. Others are taking a very long time to materialise. I understand now that external psychiatrists are no longer invited to the weekly meetings about her care. Instead, the same individuals who seem to have given up on her also advise the Integrated Care Board, creating a troubling conflict of interest. The collaborative care model appears to have failed her, and concerns raised by other professionals have been ignored. This led me to request NHS England's intervention. Disturbingly, I learned that Patricia's court ruling, which prevents forced treatment, is being used to justify withholding all care unless she complies with rigid, unattainable demands. This ultimatum, our way or the highway, is unethical and counterproductive, particularly for somebody with autism and PDA. Further, Patricia's care documentation reveals a fatalistic approach that misrepresents her condition, effectively ensuring rejection from SEDUs. I believe this is a systemic issue, reflecting a toxic ideology within certain parts of the eating disorder treatment system that some patients are untreatable and should not be treated. This ideology, detailed in a controversial article in the Royal College of Psychiatrists newsletter, has no basis in evidence, yet appears to influence Patricia's care. She is sadly not alone in facing this. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. Yet Patricia has been systematically excluded from life-saving treatment. NHS guidance has been repeatedly breached. CPFT rejects external opinions and even offers of eating disorder specialist therapy support within the hospital setting. Patricia needs a stable specialist placement with integrated medical and mental health treatment, yet she remains trapped in a cycle designed, I believe, for her to fail. Clinicians, finding themselves believing there is nothing that can or should be done in a case, should step aside from any role in it, not preside over it. Differences of opinion are essential to developing areas of healthcare, but they should be supported by supervision and challenge, not encampments of ideology, Madam Deputy Speaker. And yet, characteristically, Patricia refuses to die. Madam Deputy Speaker, I urge this House to support direct NHS England commissioning of a SEDU placement for her, bypassing CPFT and its affiliates. Her case needs a proper second opinion and support for settings being asked to consider admitting her. It will then need very careful handling to ensure her consent and participation, but I believe this can be achieved. Patricia's experience is a stark reminder of the injustices faced by vulnerable individuals in a system that should protect them. Her story echoes other national scandals where institutional neglect has caused immense harm. I'm speaking today because Patricia, her family and I are at our wits' end. She has a huge amount of value to offer the world. She is at a desperate stage of her illness, yet she refuses to give up. Treatment is her only chance, and we must not abandon her. She will continue her fight, her family will continue to fight, and I'll be by their side every step of the way. But the NHS must act urgently to hold its services accountable, ensure adherence to guidelines, and provide the care Patricia and countless others deserve. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Before I call the next speaker, I am going to have to impose a 4-minute time limit. Jenny Riddell-Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's debate. As we approach the festive season, I'd like to also extend my warmest well wishes to everyone in the House, to you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and to the dedicated staff who help make this place so special and kind. Christmas, of course, offers a timely opportunity to reflect on the achievements, the community spirit, and remarkable individuals who make up the heart of our constituencies. And I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the individuals, charities, businesses and organisations that make Suffolk Coastal such a special place. Groups like Pickstoff Felixstowe, where Liz and her team of volunteers are doing exceptional work supporting young families in need. Their work goes beyond providing material things like food and clothes, and they work to ensure that no family feels isolated or alone, and it's especially important during the holidays or indeed any time of year. In Woodbridge, the Woodbridge branch of the Salvation Army are a shining example of our community giving back. During my recent visit, I had the pleasure of meeting Alan, Tanya and their team of volunteers who work tirelessly to provide food and essential supplies to those facing hardship or loneliness. A few weeks ago, I held a pop-up surgery at the Salvation Army's food bank with citizens' advice there to help provide support to those in need. I was able to provide financial advice, give support to people who are facing real and pressing poverty, and for those who had found themselves in hard and unexpected hard times. That was a pretty normal surgery experience for me. And then I met Edward. Edward is 42 and street homeless. He was a fisherman, previously in Aldborough. He had a stable job, a home and a relationship. And then when things started to go wrong for him, as they do for all of us at some time in our own lives, it affected his mental health, which in turn meant he turned to drugs. The drugs took over his life and it spiralled from there. When I met Edward the other week, he was clean. He'd managed to get clean on his own and he'd been sofa surfing, but then naturally the goodwill of his friends ran out. And when that luck ran out, he'd moved into a disused caravan on private land that he'd found near Woodbridge. His only coat had been stolen some days beforehand. My team were able to get him some emergency help, and it was the Salvation Army that so kindly stepped in and brought him a brand new coat from Mountain Warehouse that same day. He was later placed in emergency temporary accommodation, and he's now being supported by the council. But it was that friendship and that support from the Salvation Army that gave Edward the first glimmer of hope that he'd felt in months. A warm meal, a new coat, and a safe place to begin the journey to find temporary accommodation. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to place on record a sincere thanks to the Salvation Army and indeed all those groups that do so much to support our constituents. Woodbridge is one of the many beautiful market towns in my constituency that tourists flock to, and just the other week it was voted as the happiest place to live in the country. And as someone that lives in Woodbridge, I wholeheartedly and unapologetically agree. But I feel a desperate need whenever I talk about the beauty of Suffolk Coastal to also talk about the other side of our constituency. And Edward's story is a real reminder of that. I fear that so many people don't see the poverty or the struggles facing so many in my constituency. In Suffolk Coastal, we have 23% of children on free school meals, but in Southwold, a place that tourists coo over, we have 39% of children on free school meals. And in one primary school in Southwold alone, 1 in 2 children receive it. We have food banks in every single town in my constituency and growing in each of our villages and parishes. We have a waiting list, a housing waiting list that only increases each year, with 150 households in East Suffolk living in temporary accommodation, meaning that this Christmas, 188 children will be living in hotels and B&Bs. That's no way a child should live at any time of the year, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the work of our community to fix some of the most pressing issues must be commended. And I've already talked about some of the work of our amazing food banks, and it doesn't stop there. As you can imagine, Madam Deputy...
I now call Ynys Medi.
I believe that the Government should be holding a debate on the UK-wide impact of the closure of the ports of Holyhead. Although ports in Wales are a matter for Welsh Government, international trade is a matter reserved for the UK Government. Holyhead's strategic location is key for the UK economy. Westminster cannot ignore this issue. The port of Holyhead has sustained serious damage in the aftermath of Storm Dara. All sailings have been cancelled until the 15th of January at the very least. The storm brought gusts of 94 miles an hour wind and caused enormous disruption to the port, which is the main sea route between North Wales and Ireland and UK's second busiest roll-on, roll-off port. Its closure just before Christmas has had a direct impact on livelihoods and businesses on the island. The sudden ending of freight traffic means businesses have seen their work vanish overnight. This is pushing local businesses into breaking point. Royalty Recruitment is a family-run business who tell me they've had to let go 10 brand new staff members, 3 of which had only recently joined them. Holyhead Truck Service is another local business affected. They've seen their work dry up completely as 40% of their annual income is mechanical work for Irish companies. This period of year would usually be the busiest period for these businesses, but now they are facing huge job cuts and reduced demand due to the closure of the port. The sudden loss of income is unsustainable for many businesses, and job losses will push families into financial hardship, leaving them struggling to pay their own bills. In a statement earlier this week, the Secretary of State for Wales did not set out any direct support from the UK Government to address this crisis. I am certain that if we were talking about the Port of Dover or an airport in London being closed for at least a whole month, then there would be a huge effort to get these sites open again to support the thousands of supply chain jobs affected. Yet, so far, Holyhead has been treated as an afterthought. The UK government must recognise the huge impact the closure of this port will have, not only on the trade, given that total UK export to Ireland amounts to £54 billion, and that Ireland is the UK's third largest export partner, but the livelihoods of the people of Ynys and North Wales. It should set up a hardship fund to support businesses and families directly affected by the closure of the port, as well as those involved in the supply chain. This funding should be directed towards the council and third sector organisations who are best placed to offer financial and other support to those struggling. The port operator says the earliest the port may open is the 15th of January. However, that is with weather permitting, and I fear that more cold and stormy weather at this period of the year will push this date back. Even once the port reopens, the damage done to the local economy will take time to heal. Decisive and swift action now by both the UK and Welsh Government is needed to minimise the damage and suffering to people minimise the damage and suffering people will be feeling. As climate change fuels, more violent storms at the Port of Holyhead will again occur. The Chair of the Welsh Affairs Committee has joined my calls for support to businesses, writing to the Secretary of State for Business and Trade yesterday, seeking an update on the support the UK Government is providing to getting the port back up and running, and to all businesses and employees impacted by the closure. The Government must step up and provide the emergency funding needed to get us through this difficult period of time.
I call Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And given the festive season, I thought it was appropriate to use this time to celebrate my constituency and to say a few thank yous. But most importantly, I would like to thank the people of Luton South and South Bedfordshire for re-electing me as their Member of Parliament once again in July. And after boundary changes, I'm also proud to now represent the good people of South Bedfordshire, with a number of villages and swathes of beautiful countryside being added to the urban landscape of the constituency. So I'm grateful to those in the new part, including Kensworth, Studham, Eton Bray, to name but a few, for electing me, some of whom have never voted Labour before. The new constituency boundary also means I now represent more animals than ever before, if that's a thing, now that both Whipsnade Zoo as well as Appledown Rescue and Rehoming Kennels are both within Luton South and South Bedfordshire. So I say thank you to all who work or volunteer with both these great charities, large and small. And my rescue dog Maisie would of course want me to remind everybody that a dog is for life and not just for Christmas. It's an honour and a privilege to represent my hometown of Luton, the place where I grew up, went to school, where I live, and where I previously represented residents as a local Labour councillor. This place can be a bit intimidating at times, but I always remember where I came from when faced with challenges. I'm Luton born and bred, which keeps me grounded every day. Luton sometimes gets an unjustified bad reputation, but we have plenty to be proud of, and I'd like to focus on the positives our town has to offer. This year, Radio 1 brought the big weekend to Luton, and it was a wonderful opportunity to showcase our town with brilliant musical performances from stars including Sabrina Carpenter, Teddy Swims, Ray, and much to the delight of many Lutonians, Coldplay. They made up a song entitled Orange to celebrate the colours of our brilliant Luton Town Football Club. But I don't need Chris Martin to say, I was born in love with Luton and I'm always going to be. And speaking of our football club, it's a brilliant and exciting time for LTFC. As of this week, the Planning Committee at Luton Council formally approved plans for the new Power Court Stadium development. And this marks a huge moment of regeneration in our town, with plans for restaurants, a hotel, a music venue alongside the stadium, making Luton a destination for not only football, but entertainment too. And a place is only as good as the people in it, and our beautifully diverse and vibrant community across Luton South and South Bedfordshire is what truly makes it so special. There are some wonderful community organisations and charities who do so much to support those in most need. So I say thank you to Luton Food Bank, as well as NOAA and Signpost for supporting many people in need. And I say thank you to Luton Irish Forum, who provide invaluable support with regards to debt and welfare advice and so much more. And equally, Luton Citizens Advice for all they do and the guidance and support they offer people across the town in times of need. We have excellent organisations dedicated to supporting women and girls, so I say thank you to Women's Aid, Luton All Women's Centre and Stepping Stones. And a healthy society can only be achieved by ensuring we have support for those who need it, particularly with regards to mental health. So I say thank you to Healthwatch Luton, Mind BLMK, Headway, our Luton Community Mental Health Hubs and local Samaritans for all that they do. And alongside our civic society, we must remember our faith communities, who during 14 years of Tory austerity stepped up to fill the welfare gap the previous government created in towns like ours. And finally, I just want to mention all our public service workers who sacrifice so much to keep us healthy and safe, and many who won't get to rest over Christmas, from Bedfordshire Police, Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue, and all our doctors, nurses, paramedics and NHS staff at Luton Dunstable Hospital. And so I finish by saying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to one and all.
Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I often think of our role as placemakers, problem solvers, and to be great representatives of our own constituencies. And on that basis, can I say a huge thank you to all of my constituents for re-electing me at the general election. There is loads of fuel in the tank to keep going in representing the mighty constituency of Keighley and Ilkley with great enthusiasm, energy, and I want to reaffirm my commitment to make sure that I'm doing my very best as their local champion. Of course, placemaking is all about driving local growth within our communities. And that's why I just want to go through some of the key projects across my constituency that I am indebted to working on. And a lot of this work comes on the back of Conservative money under the last administration that was allocated specifically and ring-fenced to Keighley through the Keighley Towns Fund, £33.6 million, aimed at driving growth, using that public sector money to try and drive inward private investment into the centre of Keighley. And one of those great projects, Madam Deputy Speaker, is Providence Park, which is due to open earlier next year. And next door to that, we have Keighley train station, which has just benefited from a £9 million allocation of funding. And then further down the line, on the same road, we've got Keighley Fire Station, which is also undergoing development. We have a new skills hub, a new manufacturing, engineering and tech hub, and a new health and well-being hub, which is shortly coming down the line. And that's not before we start mentioning our mighty Keighley Cougars, of which the last Conservative administration allocated £2 million to regenerate their stands so their fans can benefit from the mighty sports that they play. Haworth Village Hall is also benefiting from money to make sure that our community groups can benefit from the range of activities that they carry on, and Central Hall in the centre of Keighley is also benefiting from money. But we do have an announcement of a new sixth form college to be built, and can I urge the government to stick with these plans? I know it's under review at the moment, but we do need that new sixth form college that the last Conservative administration announced to be completed. And then, Madam Deputy Speaker, I know your constituents will also benefit from our new Airedale Hospital, a huge achievement which I campaigned on tirelessly from being elected in 2019 to this place to ring-fence that money to get our new hospital built, and I'm very pleased that work is underway. And of course, we have City of Culture coming to the Bradford District, or District of Culture, as I like to refer to it as, Madam Deputy Speaker, because it is incredibly important that Keighley, Ilkley, Silsden and the Worth Valley all benefit from that money that is coming right across the Bradford District. But can I also say a huge thank you to our small businesses. Every year I do a small business award, and I want to say that I'm incredibly grateful for all of those individuals right across my constituency who nominated our mighty small businesses. And I'm very pleased to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that Within the Wood won the award, who are based up in the Worth Valley. Clara's Closet won the award from Keighley. Raymond Towns Menswear won the award from Ilkley. And Isherwood's Butchers, Madam Deputy Speaker, in Silsden, won our overall small business award. So thank you to those small businesses that keep our local economy going, and to all of those that shop local. And before closing, Madam Deputy Speaker, I was very, very saddened to learn of the death of one of an individual who has worked incredibly tirelessly in his involvement in chairing the Keighley Towns Fund, Ian Hayfield, who unfortunately passed away just a couple of days ago. I want to put on record my incredible thanks to his tireless energy in driving positive growth within Keighley, and I'm sure everyone across Keighley would also like to do the same. And can I thank all of those in my constituency for their efforts in the run-up to Christmas, and can I wish all members a very happy Christmas.
I call Matt Rodder.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a great pleasure to follow the honourable gentleman. Like him, I would like to continue the wonderful heritage of our late colleague for Southend, and to do a brief tour around my constituency of Reading, starting with a quick word about Reading Football Club, talking about Reading Jail and local arts, and also moving on to thanking small businesses and charities. So first and foremost, Madam Deputy Speaker, starting with our wonderful local football club, Reading FC, which is one of the longest standing clubs in the English League. Sadly, due to poor ownership, it is currently languishing in League One, and this is a club which has a glorious history, has had many great cup runs, and has the record for scoring the highest ever points total in the Championship, 106 points, 99 goals in the 2005-2006 season. Sadly, we're languishing in League One, and I would like to ask if I have one request from Santa, that Reading has a new owner for Christmas. I would like to see Dai Yong pack his bags and head home, and to see a new owner come in who can take the club forward, invest in its future, and get us back into the Championship, and who knows, maybe back into the Premiership, which we have played in on two stints in the Premiership. If we could achieve that, it would be truly wonderful, and I think every child in Reading would be delighted, the best possible Christmas present they could ever wish for. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, moving briefly on, after making that request, and I would like to say that Dai Yong has had the club up for sale for a year, and he's turned down 2 bids. This is a man who sadly was also associated with 2 clubs which closed overseas, so there is a great deal of concern from fans and other local residents about the future of the club. We've also lost the manager recently, who's moved to Hull City. So we do wish the new manager, I wish the new manager Noel Hunt well, but there are real concerns about the future of the club, and I do hope that Dai Young can listen and sell the club and move on. Moving on swiftly myself to Reading Jail, where we have better news. I would like to wish the new owner there and Reading Council and Historic England well in their efforts to try to turn the wonderful former jail into something special, redevelop it in a constructive way, and I hope to provide a significant amount of arts provision in our town centre. The jail, as people may know, was where Oscar Wilde was incarcerated. It is an incredible building, wonderful example of early Victorian architecture, which, if it was open to the public, would prove a truly incredible visitor attraction. It was briefly open in the mid-20-teens when an organisation called Art Angel held installation art and poetry reading in the jail, and it's attracted hundreds and thousands of people from across the country. Having the jail as an arts hub would be worthy of our town, which has a very successful music festival and many other arts activities, but it doesn't have an arts venue of this type. I'm campaigning for this, and I look forward to success in the new year. Madam Deputy Speaker, I appreciate time is moving on. So I would just like to mention the winners of my small business competition. I can't mention all of them, so I would like to individually, but I would like to thank them for their efforts in driving growth in our local economy, providing employment, and also making our town centre and other local centres vibrant places to visit, which shoppers and other residents much enjoy. And before I finish, may I also pay tribute to the many charities in the Reading area that do wonderful things at Christmas and indeed all year round. In particular, Toys and Teens, which is a fantastic appeal, has made many children very happy at Christmas. Many other wonderful local charities, and also to thank all those working at Christmas, particularly those in our NHS, other emergency service workers, and many others who are providing vital services while we're all enjoying Christmas with our families. Before I finish, may I just thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and your colleagues, all our colleagues across the parliamentary estate, including all the doorkeepers, the other staff who make this place such a wonderful place to work, and to wish the public and residents in Reading, of course, a very happy Christmas and a wonderful New Year.
Will Forster. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. People up and down the country are big fans of Formula One, and that's what I wanted to speak about this afternoon. I'm honoured to congratulate McLaren, based in my constituency of Woking, for their extraordinary achievement at winning the Constructors' Championship this year, the first time they have done so since 1998. This monumental success is an indication of the hard work and innovation of the team at McLaren. As such, I've submitted an early day motion congratulating them and championing the UK's leading role in Formula One. McLaren's victory represents far more than a sporting win, though. It shows that British high-quality manufacturing is at its best. That is what we as a country do so well. And obviously, I'm focusing on McLaren and Formula One, but there's other things that we do so well in the high-quality manufacturing side of things. In Woking, we're immensely proud to be home of a team that has not just won Formula One, but stands at the cutting edge of technology, of engineering and high-quality manufacturing. McLaren is a major employer in Woking, offering high-quality jobs and training opportunities. It embodies the kind of forward-thinking enterprise that we need more of in Woking, in Surrey and across the UK. British manufacturing is world-leading, and McLaren's success shines a light on that, and it shows what British firms can achieve on a global stage. High-quality manufacturing creates the high-quality jobs that we as a country need if we're going to get people out of the cost of living crisis, if we're going to help them increase the life chances of them and their children. If we attract more businesses like McLaren and give them the opportunities to establish and then thrive, we can ensure high-quality manufacturing in Britain is here to stay. I want to see Woking continue as a hub for cutting-edge technology and world-class manufacturing. We can create that right environment by encouraging investment and attracting businesses that share McLaren's ambition. That means supporting apprenticeships and the skills training that's needed, investing in infrastructure and funding more into research and development. McLaren won the championship in 1998, and I remember as a small child growing up in Woking when they drove their cars around with led by Mika Hakkinen. They hit potholes then, and I hope if they celebrate on the streets of Woking, which I've called them to do so, I fear they will hit a pothole again. But that is why we are proud of them in our town. I want to congratulate, again, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri and the entire McLaren team on their remarkable achievement. And I hope that I'll be doing the same this time next year. Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish you and everyone on the parliamentary estate a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Jim Dixon.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a genuine pleasure to speak in my first Christmas adjournment debate, and I just want to use the time to make 2 Christmas wishes and say some thank yous before we all begin driving home for Christmas. In that song, Chris Rea says, "It's going to take some time, but I'll get there. And nowhere is this more apt than in Dartford, where residents face gridlock, spilling from the river crossing at one end of the constituency and a long-term blockage to a major route out to the east of the constituency, where my honourable friend, the member for Gravesham, represents the community. And as another song goes, I don't want a lot for Christmas, but there is just one thing I need. All I want for Christmas is spades in the ground on the proposed new Lower Thames crossing. And perhaps taking my advice from the member for Brigg and Immingham, it would have been remiss for me not to mention it. And I hope that after almost 15 years of waiting, that 2025 will finally see the project started and I won't have to mention it again. I look forward also in 2025 to working with members from across the House and the other place and ministers to promote fair economic growth across the Thames estuary. And if I were allowed a second wish, and I promise it's a very simple one, I'd like to work with my honourable friend, the member for Bexley, Heath and Crayford, to persuade the government of the need to get on and finish the Elizabeth line and get it out to Ebbsfleet, where it should finish. I want also to use this time to thank some of the wonderful businesses, community groups and faith groups that have welcomed me so warmly as their Member of Parliament since my election in July and make it such a fantastic place to live, full of civic life and full of activity. We Are Beams and all the businesses who support them, Homestart North Kent,
Dartford Church's Food Bank, who keep people from destitution, the Reverend Mandy Young at St Alban and St Edmund's Church, the Winners' Chapel in Dartford and their great community work, our great community pharmacies who keep people well, Helping Hands in Swanscombe, the Eleanor and Demelza hospices who received good news today from the government about their funding, the Dartford Gurdwara and the organisers of the Festival of Ganesh from our Hindu community, and the Nepalese Tej, Dartford FC, currently a brilliant 4th in the Isthmian League and looking for promotion, Fairfield Leisure Centre and their great public health work with our local community, the team at All Directions, Millie Gooch and the Sober Girls Society for her great work on alcohol harm, Sue Stockham and her formidable work combating ovarian cancer, Cohesion Plus, who organised the Dartford Light Festival, Black History Month and so much else, the Ebbsfleet Events Committee behind the Christmas Fair and other great activity, VJ and Dartford Living in their great magazine and networking evenings, Dartford Central Park Athletics and Dartford Central Park Run, who have just celebrated their 10-year anniversary, and the amazing team at Dartford Fire Station. And I can't let this speech finish without congratulating my excellent colleagues on Dartford Labour Group and, of course, my amazing team here in Westminster and out in the constituency in Dartford. And I hope the House will permit me one last indulgence, is that I want to, on behalf of everyone who lives in Dartford, thank the emergency services staff who work all across the Christmas break to keep us safe and well, including the staff at the wonderful Darrant Valley Hospital. So I want to end by wishing honourable members across the House and all the House staff a wonderful Christmas, and particularly the Minister who will be responding to this debate, who's one of the best things to come out of Dartford. So I want to wish a Merry Christmas to everyone and look forward to seeing people in the new year.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, I want to thank all of my staff in the offices back home for all the work that they do. The reason why my constituency office works so well is because of their efforts. I want to thank them publicly. I want to very quickly, in the short time I have, Madam Deputy, give a message of hope. I was thinking about it a long time ago, what I want to say, because it seems like only yesterday we were bringing in the new year and that has passed. I think of the loss of friends, and my heart aches at the thought of those empty chairs around the Christmas tables, which many of us will have, for those whose loved ones are in hospital and not with them, and those whose families are in essential care. Christmas can very clearly, Madam Deputy, be a lonely time, but I'm also minded of the scripture text, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 8. To everything there's a season and a time, and sometimes that time can be tough. I think of those who are struggling financially and who cannot see a way forward to being on solid footing, seem to be in a place where they can't see a way with nowhere to turn. I think of those who have lost relationships with partners or children and who find themselves in a position where they're all alone. I think of those, Madam Chair, who are waiting news from hospitals or tests, or watching their ill loved ones and not knowing what the year holds. And sometimes I can understand the hopelessness that flows from that. But yet, what we have from the message of hope from Christmas that sustains me, I'm reminded of the Christmas message, the ultimate message of faith, hope and love. I often cling, Madam Deputy Speaker, to the scripture in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 23. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he has promised his faithful. I know that times can be difficult, but God is faithful and never leaves us alone in struggles. And he never leaves me alone either. The Christmas message, which is a message of a God who loved us so much that he sent his only Son to die so we could have life, yet the message, Madam Deputy Speaker, that comes from his perfect, sinless life, shameful death and glorious resurrection is one which gives us hope over 2,000 years later. This is not a nice story wrapped in a bow. It's a story of desolation, despair, yet the plan of God, which is not always easy to see or understand, was at work in turning it all for the good for all of us. The baby in the manger was Christ on the cross and is the King of glory. So I'm thankful that this reminds me of the hope that I have when I hold fast to him. As we consider the Christmas story, Madam Deputy Speaker, we must consider that it didn't end with the gift of the three kings. It didn't end with a miracle at a wedding or even with a cross on a hill. It's an unfolding story where right honourable and honourable members have a part to play. We can all choose to bring light and hope. And in a world of despair, I find there's still goodness all around us. I think of the goodness of God seen through the goodness of people around us all. However, whenever I think of all the good work carried out by the volunteers and the church and the charitable sector, when I see the goodness of community groups and neighbours, when I read of those acts of kindness to strangers, it's said in the good book that when you entertain a stranger, you can be entertaining an angel. Now, that's what the good book says. So who knows who we meet in this world when you do something good to a stranger. And the Honourable Gentleman, in his introduction to the debate, referred to helping those homeless people in the street. I'm reminded that people are still good. There's still a desire to help others. And God still moves in situations. A world without hope is a world in darkness. And whilst it may feel like the skies are darkening, I have a faith because I've seen goodness and light through these this year, dispelling darkness. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, from my home to each and every home in this wonderful United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, I love telling people about the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We're all better together. So it's wonderful. There's a hope in my heart that I wish you all a very happy Christmas and a blessed New Year, trusting that we will all see the goodness of God through the goodness of all the people we meet in 2025. Thank you.
Zoe Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to use this time in my time in this debate to just raise an issue that we have heard so much about over the last 6 months, and that is the topic of the crisis in special educational needs. 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege of visiting a coffee morning held by Family Voice in my constituency of Guildford, and I was honoured to be able to hear some of the stories from a group of mums who shared their experiences relating to their children's journey and trying to get support for those young people. And every single one of them stressed to me how challenging that journey has been. Emails going unanswered, caseworkers who go on holiday and never come back, months and sometimes years of children not being able to attend education, thousands of pounds being spent on private assessments to get the support the children need, or appealing decisions made by the local authority, fighting every day to be heard and the exhaustion that that brings. But the thing that distressed me the most, Madam Speaker, was the moment when one mum shared that she had considered, as a result of this whole process, suicide. And then another mum said the same thing. How are we in a position that the process that is designed to support and provide provision for young people is creating so much distress that families are at breaking point and even considering ending their own lives? I am deeply grateful to the Education Minister for making it very clear that the government is committed to addressing the SEND crisis, and I hope to be able to work with the government to address that in 2025. But I just want to illustrate with two very quick stories to just really emphasise how desperately the situation needs to change. The first is a young woman, 17, in my constituency, who's been out of school for 5.5 years. She wasn't able to do her GCSEs. She was given a placement in October at a place where she has thrived. She has said it herself that she has felt seen. She has found her community. But that placement has not yet been renewed by the local authority. She has been failed, and the hope that was there has potentially been ripped away. The second is of a 9-year-old boy with autism and PDA. The local authority, Surrey, sent him to an independent school in 2022 to provide for his needs. That school has now said they cannot provide for those needs. They have removed his placement, and they have said they will not hold at that place while they try and find a school. I find that deeply unacceptable. And they are apparently not the only family who has experienced this off-rolling, but Surrey says the families have elected to homeschool. I would like to ask if the Minister would ask her colleague to meet me to discuss the practice of off-rolling, which I'm sure is happening not just in my own constituency. And I want to close by just reiterating that so many of us will have received deeply distressing emails seeking support from their residents. But these are the people who are able to ask and advocate for themselves. How many families are unable, for various reasons, to advocate for themselves? We must remember that as we try to seek to fix the SEND crisis, that is not just for the families that we hear about every day in our inboxes. I, at the moment, have nearly 50 separate cases, but we are also seeking to fix it for those families that we do not know about. As I said, I hope that we will be able to work across this House in 2025 to seek to fix this crisis, because we must not continue to allow our children to be failed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and a very happy Christmas to you and all the staff in the House of Commons for the work that they do and the support they give to all of us. And also thanks to all the people that work so hard in my constituency, in a series of community centres, schools and other places, and all those that help and support and work in the food banks in my constituency. I feel sad that we have food banks. I feel sad that food banks have now become institutionalised within our society. 15 years ago there were almost no food banks, now they are all over the country. We need to look at the problems of inequality and poverty within our society. And I feel sad that over the last 5 months in this Parliament, since the general election took place, we have missed opportunities to end the two-child benefit cap, missed opportunities to reduce the levels of poverty amongst many older people, and in fact made it worse by ending the winter fuel allowance. And in the case of Royal Mail, we've allowed it to be run yet again by another private sector operator with all the profits they're going to take out of it, rather than bring it into public ownership to make sure that the people of this country benefited from our oldest public service. And when the House returns in January, the issue of water supply and the water industry will have to be addressed. We have water companies all over the country paying their CEOs the most massive salaries imaginable, taking huge profits out which are paid often to overseas investors in our industry, and we have catastrophic levels of pollution in our rivers and our seas. And in the case of the water company that affects my area, Thames Water, the most indebted company around, that is now expecting to put up the bills yet more in order to pay for the infrastructure, which they could have paid for themselves had they not been paying so much money to private investors all over the world. The case for public ownership of water is absolutely overwhelming. And so the other issues I just wanted to quickly mention in the last couple of minutes I've got are this. Our society is precious and valuable, but in the past year we've seen the rise of racism in our society. We've seen a culture of blaming migrants and refugees for the problems that people face in housing, in education and health. It is nothing to do with them. The problems of those are the lack of investment in those services. So can we resolve over Christmas to have respect for those people that are trying to make a place to live safely and contribute to our society, rather than this culture of blaming migrants and blaming people that have come from Calais merely because they're trying to survive in a difficult world beset by war and by conflict. And that would help, I think, a great deal. My constituents are wonderful people, but many have the most appalling housing problems to deal with. The street homeless, who are helped by various organisations, including the local authority, and I don't blame them for the problems at all. Those living in the grotesquely overpriced private rented sector, and those living in increasingly undemocratically run housing associations, and those living in leased property where they are paying exorbitant charges for ground rent and for services and have very little control over their own lives. I appreciate what the government has brought forward on the renters' bill. I welcome it as far as it goes, but we do need to have a further, deeper think on housing as a right and a need for people, and not the exorbitant costs it is at the present time. And with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, a very happy Christmas.
Vera Hobhouse.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This week marks the end of Disability History Month, a chance for all of us to highlight the experiences of disabled people and to support disability rights. In Bath, 30% of all households include at least one person with a disability. I recently visited Carswood Day Service to learn more about the incredible work they do to support adults with learning disabilities in the city. Their service also provides respite for unpaid family carers, who are often the primary caregivers. And Madam Deputy Speaker, where would we be without our unpaid carers? The visit also highlighted the Rake Up and Grow initiative, a vocational project that helps adults with learning disabilities gain practical skills through community gardening projects. The project not only helps build skills, but also promotes social inclusion and community engagement. By working with local organisations like the Royal United Hospital, Bath Rugby Foundations and others, Rake Up and Grow provides fantastic opportunities for disabled peoples and peoples with learning disabilities. Bath and North East Somerset Third Sector Group, 3SG, is a voluntary community and social enterprise infrastructure network for around 250 charities, providing one-on-one support, training, events and wider advocacy work in the sector. Charities, Madam Deputy Speaker, are the ever-constant extra support that go above and beyond every single day. Now more than ever, charities are needed to pick up those who are waiting for statutory services or just fall through the cracks. They employ highly skilled workers and strategic thinkers, many of whom are delivering daily life-saving interventions and deserve to be equal partners in any conversation with the government and the NHS. Madam Deputy Speaker, the third sector cannot be underestimated, but now these charities are at breaking point. For too long they have been asked to do more for less. The third sector applauds better wages for all, but urges the government to reconsider its non-exemption of national insurance increases. 3SG has surveyed its members, and of those the budget affects, charities in Bath and North East Somerset will need to find between 4,000 and 400,000 extra costs every year. A big amount of money for those organisations who already have to survive on dwindling resources. BANES 3SG urges the government to consider the pressure it is putting on the third sector, including hospices, if the NIC increases are not lifted. And Madam Deputy Speaker, myself and the Liberal Democrats are urging the government to consider again and again. And hopefully, as somebody has said, the government always says no before it says yes. So I hope for that. Think of all our local charities and all the good they do, and I imagine where would we be without them, and if they weren't providing the wonderful services in Bath. And that leaves me to thank all of those who work in the charity sector, who work in voluntary organisations, for all those family carers, for all those who are looking after those who are sick and need our support this Christmas. I wish them all a very Merry Christmas. I wish you, Madam Deputy Speaker, a Merry Christmas, and everybody else across the House.
Bobby Dean.
And let me start by thanking the member for Harrow East for opening this debate, a fellow Bob and a fellow Spurs fan. I'm not sure how much we'll agree on in 2025, but Spurs winning something is something we certainly do agree on. Yeah. He covered lots of local and international issues, and I think it demonstrates the breadth of debate that we have in this place. And just before I sum up some of the backbench contributions, I just want to focus a little bit on the work I've been doing in my own constituency in Carshalton and Wallington. I made 3 big promises to my residents, and it was around the NHS, the cost of living and the environment, and I feel like I've made some progress in this first few months in office. The first one has been negotiating with the Trust and the Health Secretary over the future of our local hospital, St Helier, which we hope will mean we'll be able to retain our A&E services and get a new building in our community in the next year. On the cost of living, I'm privileged to be on the Treasury Committee and getting to examine very closely the country's finances and hopefully make an impact on the economy more broadly. And on the environment, I've been very focused on pollution in my local river, Wandle. It's actually something I made a documentary film about last year, and we're doing a short follow-up in the new year just in time for the Oscars. We've had lots of brilliant tributes to local organisations, to volunteers and to charities, and there's been a range of issues raised, but I'm going to focus my highlights on the Christmas-themed contributions. The first one was for Walsall and Bloxwich, who almost went into the 12 Days of Christmas song with her mention of partridge in a pear tree. And she also mentioned many constituency and international issues that were of concern to her. We had the member for Dartford, and he talked about driving home for Christmas. Well, that is actually my route for driving home for Christmas. I am a subscriber to AutoPay in Dartford Tunnel because my parents live in Essex, so I will be going through your constituency in a week or so's time. The member for Newton, Aycliffe and Spennymoor talked about a local band that thankfully will not be contesting Christmas #1 because the member for Kingston and Surbiton will not be too happy about that. And I was shocked that the member for Bath didn't actually mention that the choir is the one behind it. Love is enough. So I'll just get that plug in there as well so that I can keep my job. There was a mention of what I'm going to be dubbing Christmas lights, though not quite, from the member for Brigg and Immingham, who talked about the very serious issue of headlight glare. And Christmas food and drink. Well, here I move to a more serious point. Sadly, many members reflected on how many will go without food this Christmas and how vital food banks are going to be at this time. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge their role at this special time. And our work in this place will never be done until every food bank is abolished. My Christmas drink reference is a little more tangential, and it's the member for Ynys who contributed about her port, and I'm going to classify Christmas port as a drink for this festive period. And finally, we talked about Christmas sport, and we might be moving into Boxing Day a bit here, but the member for Strangford talked about how we're all better together, and I think sport is a special way of bringing people together during this time. We had the member for Luton South and South Bedfordshire, and also the member for Reading Central talk about their respective football clubs. I'll be going to watch my local football club on Boxing Day, and I hope they do the same. And finally, the member for Woking, who actually talked about F1, not football, but it gives me a really good link back to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, who are the hosts of the only F1 go-karting track in the country, and again bring me back to my New Year's hope that we win a trophy. So just to close, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas, to all of the staff that have been so supportive of me as a new member in this House, and to all of our colleagues for the respectful debate we've had today and throughout the year. Thank you.
Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's an honour to be able to wind up this end-of-term Christmas adjournment debate for the official opposition. We've had a wide and varied range of issues raised in this debate, and a fantastic array of constituency facts from constituencies all across the United Kingdom, and on issues that really need tackling, and the pride that members from all sides of this House have in their constituencies, their constituents, and the people within them. And if I might just give some newer members on the government side a top tip, a genuine non-partisan top tip, when they speak in these debates in future, they should take it as read that this is the only time, and a rare occurrence, when they can actually speak on the floor of a House to a government whip. And they're able to tease that whip, and they're able to claim what they want from their constituency from that whip, and they're able to sometimes tease out where they think the government might be going wrong to that whip. And they can do that on the floor of the House because this is a rare occasion where a whip can respond to a debate in this House. I encourage them to tread gently, however, because if they do that, and I encourage them to do so, I used to do it to my right honourable friend, the member for Daventry, that the meetings without coffee will start again in January, but they should enjoy themselves in this debate this afternoon, and I know that they have. And I know that the whip responding will be making a list, she'll be checking it twice, she'll be looking to see which of her members have been naughty and nice, and you never know that Santa Claus might be coming to a town near you. I also note that the Honourable Lady for Redcar was chair of the APPG for bingo at some stage during her career. Well, in her wind-up remarks, I wonder if we'll see a game of Labour bingo. 14 years, fixing the foundations, dire inheritance. I would say to her, don't be surprised if I shout full house at her when she's winding up, because I'm afraid we won't be taking any of that broken record from the Honourable Lady later, but it's a lot less broken than the record that I encourage members from all sides of this House to buy at Christmas, and that's freezing at Christmas, raising money for Age UK, which I hope all members across this House will be buying as we go up to the Christmas #1 competition. I'm sorry to the Liberal Democrats that I'm not endorsing the Right Honourable Gentleman for Kingston and Surbiton. If I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, I just want to run through a number of contributions that have been made in this House from members on all sides of the Chamber. The Honourable Gentleman, the member for Harrow East, outlined that he's been elected as Chair of the Backbench Business Committee, and he opened this debate in his typically charismatic and factual way. And he's also got the double hatter of being chairman of the 1922 committee. Well, I can guarantee to him, Madam Deputy Speaker, that he will not be receiving any communications from me over the next 5 years. But he also outlined that my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, is a winning candidate, and I look forward to her taking over as Prime Minister in 5 years' time. And actually, we do need to respect and note that she is the 4th female leader of the Conservative Party, something that the governing party need to take note of. He also outlined that he also outlined his campaigns on the issues of London transport. Well, I would just say to him, that's what you get now with Sir Sadiq Khan, and Labour want to bring more directly elected mayors by central diktat across the whole of the country. And we on this side of the House will absolutely be holding Sadiq Khan to account for the dire services that he offers his constituents in London. He has outlined his absolute commitment, which I know he has stood up on in this House, on both sides of this House, on the prescription of the IRGC, and I know he'll keep pushing for that, and he's absolutely right to push that as he stands up for the great nation of Israel. The Right Honourable Lady, the member for Walsall and Brockwich, I think, is it Bloxwich, thank you, mentioned a really important issue on accessibility for all funding with railway stations. All members across this House, I know over the last 5 years, have brought up their individual constituents. I have brought up my constituents at stations in Hedge End and Swanwick many times when we had the affordability feasibility study money allocated by the last government. It is something that I would ask the Minister on duty to go back to the Department for Transport, to come back to all members who were promised that money in the last Parliament. It was allocated by the last government, to come back and outline where we are going with accessibility for all. The ministerial letters that I had didn't outline when the next steps would happen, and I would ask the Minister in a very polite way on behalf of my constituents to see where we are on that project. My honourable friend, the member for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk, mentioned in a heartfelt speech the volunteers across all of his volunteers across his constituency, and he's absolutely right to pay tribute to our volunteers, which we all have in our constituencies, particularly volunteers within the NHS and the armed forces, and we all have volunteers, and they are a credit to our nation, and they will be working across the United Kingdom across the Christmas period, and we all owe them a huge thank you. He mentioned the Men's Shed charities, which I know from personal experience have helped many people who I know with mental health issues, men with mental health issues, a topic that I don't think we talk enough about, and I pay tribute to the Men's Sheds across the whole country for the things that they build on behalf of community centres. We've got some lovely flower beds in Hedge End Village that they'd built on behalf of us, Madam Deputy Speaker, in my constituency, and we pay tribute to them too. The Honourable Gentleman for Newton Aycliffe and Spennymoor, this is testing my pronunciations of names across the UK, is a dedicated champion for his constituency. Madam Deputy Speaker, we worked together in a sector before we entered this place, namely the social housing and housing association sector in the UK. He is a first-rate brain on housing policy in this country, and I hope that he's used by the government going forward to unlock the much-needed social housing that we need. And he mentioned the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme. I declare an interest that I am a trustee of the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme, and I encourage members from across the House to take part in that scheme. It is fantastic, and it makes sure that we, even though we obviously honour the work that our armed forces do, it allows us to get closer to them and really listen to the issues that they go through on our behalf day in and day out. And my honourable friend, the member for Brigg and Immingham, typically, as he does in every debate when we have these end-of-term adjournment debates, raised really important issues within his constituency, and in particular the direct train service to King's Cross, which he has been bringing up consistently in this House since 2011. Well, can I just say to him, keep going, because I didn't find him boring, and I look forward to him bringing this up in the next debate, probably in the summer, and I look forward to being able to respond to that at that occasion too. The Honourable Lady for Luton South mentioned animals in her constituency. A dog is for life, not just for Christmas, and I hope she buys her dog Maisie a big bone this Christmas as a Christmas present. I see it on her phone. My honourable friend, the member for Keighley and Ilkley, is a dedicated and doughty champion for his constituents. He and I were elected in the same intake together in this House, and I have to say to him, and I don't mind saying to him, that his result was a standout result for me on election night, because I think I can say to him that even though he is a doughty and committed constituency MP, his result surprised me, not because of his lack of ambition or his lack of ability, but just because he is, obviously by the result and getting through this election, which was very difficult for the Conservatives, in his seat. It shows the dedication and the work that he puts in. He mentioned a number of Conservative initiatives, funding programmes in his constituency, which were ring-fenced, and he wants to drive growth. I fear that that growth will be damaged by some of the policies by this government, but he's a tireless campaigner. I'd like to know what was in Clara's closet, a shop that he mentioned. But he's also right to mention and pay tribute to Ian Hayfield, who was the chair of the Town's Bid, who passed away a couple of days ago, and members across this House pass our condolences to his family. The Honourable Gentleman, the member for Woking, mentioned McLaren and championed them and outlined the local investment that those businesses, and particularly F1 businesses, bring to his constituency. He's absolutely right to do that. The Honourable member for Dartford said a couple of puns concerning Christmas lyrics. Can I just recommend that he stick to the day job in sticking up for his constituents and focusing on solving those issues. But he brought some fun to this debate, which is what they're entirely meant for. And I hope that he's successful lobbying ministers for that investment. My honourable friend, the member for Strangford, he always comes to this House most of the time and mentions that we all need to think of others at this time and have a message for hope at Christmas. Whenever he stands up in this House, he offers us hope and shows us the way in which we should be doing our jobs, and I wish him and his family a happy Christmas too. The Honourable Lady, the member for Guildford, mentioned volunteers and send children, something that I can see in her short time when I'm sitting in here, often heckling the Labour Party, that she often brings up that issue for her constituents, and I know that she will continue to do so in her way, and I really do accept and will work with her to make sure that we improve on those issues going forward. Madam Deputy Speaker, may I take this opportunity to thank all of the House staff for their unfailing help to all members, particularly new members, a record number of new members that came into the House. I'd particularly like to mention, although other members of staff shouldn't take it personally, I'd particularly like to mention Godfrey, Daphne and Dawn in the tea room, who make my lunch and serve me tea very well, a lovely cup of tea after being in here, which I'll be doing after this. The doorkeepers for their help and putting me right often when I've got lost and putting up with my humour, and all staff, and may I wish them a very, very Merry Christmas. May I wish you, Madam Deputy Speaker, all the other Madam Deputy Speakers and Mr Speaker a particularly good Christmas and a rest, and my team also who helped me and keep me on the straight and narrow, Steff, Emma, Dan and Charlie. Madam Deputy Speaker, this debate shows that this place really is a place of worthy ideals. It's a place for decency, and it's a place where we all can share in a common bond of the privilege of representing our constituencies, places that we care about, and our constituents, fantastic people that make up this country in the way that they do. Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish my constituents in Hamble Valley a great Christmas, and to all members right across this House, I look forward to seeing you, all of those members, back in the House in 2025, and I hope everybody has a very good rest. Thank you.
Anna Turley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me begin by paying tribute to the Honourable Member for Harrow East and to thank him and all of the members of the Backbench Business Committee for all the work they do in bringing so many important issues to the notice of this House. And to thank him again for his contribution today. I have to take slight disagreement with him and the Honourable Gentleman on the issues of Transport for London, because many of us outside of London would dearly wish to have a transport system so well funded and so efficient. And I do think he was channeling Ebenezer Scrooge a little bit in complaining about capped fares, but I take it in the spirit in which it was intended. I'd also like to thank him for raising the issues of the hostages taken on October the 7th. Our hearts break for them and for their families, and we desperately hope for them to be returned. We hope for peace, we hope for a ceasefire, and we thank him for bringing this issue to the House, and also for his important tribute to the importance of Holocaust Memorial Day, which we all share. And let me begin my words, Madam Deputy Speaker, by wishing you, the other Deputy Speakers, and Mr Speaker, a very happy Christmas. Not only you, but also your fantastic team. The clerks, the doorkeepers, the library staff, the security, the catering teams, the police, the guides, the visitor support, the cleaners, Hansard, and indeed all the many, many thousands of people who make this place and the other place run. And we should never forget what a privilege it is to be here and how well we are served by the entire parliamentary team. And we should also never forget how precious our democracy is as we stand here in the mother of parliaments. From the market squares of Damascus to the trenches of the Donbass, people are fighting and dying for democracy, for the right to self-determination, for the right to speak out, for freedom. We must never take this responsibility or this privilege for granted. And so, while this may be the last speech in this chamber for the year, it is indeed my first speech in the chamber for over 5 years. And I'm very grateful, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this old place has not changed too much. I see one or two new faces on the benches, and I'm delighted how many of them are on this side of the chamber and how many of them represent places that have never before had a Labour MP. We see the lovely Jenny the guide dog, normally placed there, following in the paw prints of Lucy and Sadie. And, of course, we think particularly today, and we see the commemorative plaque to the late, great Sir David Amess, who was a phenomenal man and who I really enjoyed working with in setting up the all-party parliamentary group on endometriosis. He's much missed. I know how much he loved this debate every year, and we think of him particularly today, Madam Deputy Speaker. And, of course, I want to think also of my dear friend Jo Cox, who we still miss very, very dearly, and who should have been here with us playing her part in a Labour government. I've never been prouder in my life than to have been returned as the member for Redcar in July. But as a so-called retread, I have been denied a maiden, and as a government whip, unable to join in debates. So swapping voice in this place for influence, I hope, on behalf of my constituents within this government. And so as it's Christmas, I hope the House will indulge me if I take a moment to thank my wonderful constituents across the Redcar and Cleveland constituency for putting their faith in me once again. I'd like to thank my agent Sarah, my organiser Jack, and my brilliant team for their hard work in those long months leading up to the 4th of July, and of course for the fantastic support that they and all constituency and parliamentary staff provide for our constituents on our behalves. And since the election, I've been thrilled to visit schools across the constituency, including Huncliffe, Riverdale, Nunthorpe, Ormsby Primary, Rye Hills, Lakes Primary, Whale Hill, and Redcar and Cleveland College, and I've talked to hundreds of pupils to celebrate Parliament Week recently. It's also been my privilege to continue to support local charities like Footprints in the Community, Strive, the Imaginarium, Teesside Hospice, the Royal British Legion, Grangetown Generations, the Junction, and many more. And to have watched netball at Grangetown, football at Redcar Athletic, Redcar Town, Mask United, and Normanby, swimming with Eston Swimming Club, boxing at Redcar Boxing Club. And thinking today of the home helps caring for our elderly, to the steel workers at Lackenby, from the small businesses on our high streets to the nurses in James Cook, Foxrush House and Redcar Hospital, I'm reminded every day what makes our community great and what a great community I'm lucky to live in. I will, of course, give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. She's been incredibly active in both her constituency but also in this place on the matter of steel, which she mentions in particular. She and I both know that government is engaged in very sensitive and difficult negotiations at this present time about the steel industry, but I wonder if she could touch on this issue in terms of her views and in terms of the government's views to ensure that steel is not a sunset industry.
Anna Turley.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend and also pay tribute to him for the hard work that he is undertaking and what a doughty champion he is for the people of East Cleveland, the community from which he was born, on this industry. And as he says, it is a vital industry to this country, not a sunset industry, vital to our defence, to our sovereignty, to jobs, to our plans for building homes, infrastructure, and for us being at the forefront of a global transition on steel. So we're all working hard together jointly on this side of the House for electric arc furnaces in Teesside, for the future of Scunthorpe and for Port Talbot. And this Christmas we think of steelworkers around the country who are doing their utmost to maintain this phenomenal industry that is so vital to our national interest, and we thank them. But today, this has been a debate worthy of this place, and I really believe this is the best democratic assembly in the world, capable of rising to greatness when the occasion demands. In particular, our recent debate on assisted dying was a testament to our democracy and the quality and thoughtfulness of honourable and right honourable members on all sides. And today has been no less impressive, if a little more local and festive. And I want to just pay tribute to a few of the fantastic interventions that we've had today. My honourable friend for Walsall and Bloxwich raised very important issues, and I absolutely take to heart the pledge I made to her to bring these issues to ministers. No one should be denied access to watch, for better or worse, their local football team if they can't access the transport. So we'll certainly be taking that up. I'm very proud of everything this government is doing on cancer, £1.5 billion put into scanners and diagnosis. And as someone who lost my granddad to bowel cancer, it's something that's very close to my heart. But I'll also take up her issues on free schools and arts and museums, and I very much look forward to the year of reading as well as a champion of literature myself. The honourable member for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk paid fantastic tribute to charities and volunteers, and we all know this time of year how crucial they are to our society, to our community. We couldn't function without them, and it also I'm reminded of the member for Suffolk Coastal who raised in particular Salvation Army. We know what a phenomenal job they do this time of year when so many people are falling through the gaps, and they are there to catch them, and thank goodness they are. So I paid tribute to them and to all of our voluntary and community groups, and also I'm delighted to send all best wishes to Edward and hope for his future. My honourable friend in Newton Aycliffe and Spennymoor has done fantastic work championing Hitachi. He's certainly not boring either in his absolute relentlessness in the way in which he champions that. But we're delighted to have secured that £500 million to support the workers, the supply chains, the jobs and the apprenticeships. We look forward next year to celebrating 200 years of the railways. And as someone who's going back to Darlington via Darlington tonight, I look forward to celebrating the Darlington-Stockton Railway next year. The honourable member for Brigg and Immingham made really important issues on road safety, which I hadn't really thought of, but I really value the opportunity to reflect on them. Sorry for the pun, but I think it's the issue of lights and glare is fascinating, not boring. Persistence is key, and I look forward to him continuing to work with ministers on that, and I'll certainly be happy to take that up with the Department for Transport. The honourable member for South West and Leigh talked about some fantastic local projects. I'd like to congratulate the Music Man project on their King's Award and wish them all the very best for the future. The honourable member for North Norfolk raised a really important constituency case, and we listened very, very carefully to that. I think he's absolutely right on the numbers of people who, like Patricia, have to wrestle and navigate the system for whole person care. And I know it's something this government is committed to, and I really look forward to working with him, not just on that particular case, but generally to perhaps seek a debate and to work on addressing that. The honourable member for Ynys raised a really important issue. Again, our thoughts are with all of those affected by the storm and the closure of the port. We will absolutely continue to press this with the Secretary of State and the Government for Wales. It is a port of massive national significance, and for those small businesses, particularly this time of year, I can imagine the impact is really hard. So we will take that up, and I look forward to engaging with her on that. The honourable member for Luton South and South Bedfordshire, again, was a doughty champion for her patch. I spent many happy times in my childhood in Whipsnade Zoo, so I wish them all the very best, and also to Maisie, her rescue dog, and to Luton Town FC. The honourable member for Keighley and Ilkley, again, a real powerhouse for his constituency, raising some, paying tribute to some great sports and community groups, and I congratulate him on the new hospital, and we all look forward to celebrating the City of Culture in Bradford next year. The Honourable Member for Reading Central, we wish the Royals all the very best in their promotion. Likewise, in terms of the fine sport we have in this country, the Honourable Member for Woking, we'd like to also congratulate McLaren for the brilliant work they do. And as he says, Britain is at the forefront of high-tech manufacturing and engineering. The Honourable Gentleman, the Member for Dartford, my hometown, we wish him all the best in continuing to campaign for spades in the ground on the Lower Thames crossing and the completion of the Elizabeth line, both crucial projects. And the Honourable Member for Strangford, who's sadly not in his place, but I wanted to thank him for his classic decency and kindness, not just in his tribute today, but for everything he's done, particularly for new members, to welcome and support all of us. The Honourable Member for Guildford raised SEND, which I know has been raised a huge amount in the House, and I've had it in every surgery since I've been re-elected, so we know this is a critical issue because families, as you say, are battling the system, and we want to have a country where every child matters and gets the support that they need, and this issue of off-rolling is crucial, so I thank her for raising those issues again and look forward to working with her. The Honourable Gentleman for Islington North knows I respect greatly his lifelong work and his commitment to tackling poverty and inequality. I'm sure he'd agree with me that a Labour government is infinitely more able to tackle poverty and reduce inequality than a Labour opposition, and I know he'll be supporting some of our work to tackle inequality and poverty in this country. And the Honourable Member for Bath, I thank her for paying tribute to all of those working with adults and children with disabilities this Christmas. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will be brief because I'm conscious of time, but I just wanted to say thank you to the British people who in July chose change. They looked around and they saw the NHS on its knees, our dentistry in crisis, our trains stalled and chaotic, raw sewage in our rivers, lakes and seas, rough sleeping visibly scarring our towns and lives, taxes at a 30-year high and child poverty at Dickensian levels. After 14 years, they'd had enough. They turned in their droves to a Labour government to once again clear up the mess and rebuild the social and economic fabric of a fractured nation. And now the hard yards of change have begun. We are so ambitious on this side of the House for change. The biggest legislative programme in a quarter of a century with 38 bills in the King's Speech. Rail back in public hands to put passengers before profit, a raise in the minimum wage and increases for teachers, nurses and public sector workers, maternity leave from day one in a job, more powers for police to tackle antisocial behaviour, a house building revolution, the miners' pension scheme, £1 billion for buses and local people back in charge of them, homes for veterans, a child poverty task force, a national wealth fund for a transition to the industries of the future, breakfast clubs for school children, action on spiking and stalking, bringing back neighbourhood policing, action on sewage, and in my own patch, Madam Deputy Speaker, the biggest single investment on Teesside in history, with carbon capture and storage bringing jobs and ushering in a new industrial renaissance on Teesside. So this is a Christmas list that's exhausting for Britain, only missing, as my honourable friend said, a partridge in a pear tree. So change is coming, Madam Deputy Speaker. The people have cast out the old, ushered in the new, to quote Lord Tennyson. Of course, go on then.
She's got plenty of time, but can I just say to her, one-line, two-line, full house?
Eyes down. To quote the Lord Tennyson, the old order changeth, yielding place to new. In July, the people cast out the old, ushered in the new, and we will not fail them. But at this time, Madam Deputy Speaker, I know we all want to take a moment to reflect on families, on our communities, and perhaps also on our faith. We should never forget that Christmas is not always a time for celebration and joy. For some, it is a time of great regret and sadness, of grief and of loneliness. For many, it is a time of mental stress and financial worry. And of course, we pray too for peace and an end to conflict and separation around the world. And we thank and think of our courageous armed forces around the world, for those saving lives in conflict zones, for the NHS and so many other key workers. For them, Christmas Day is just another day at work. And so for everyone alone or serving abroad or in pain this Christmas, please know you're not alone and you are loved. And that surely is the true meaning of Christmas. And so I'm reminded as I finish, one of England's greatest Christmas literary figures, Charles Dickens, began his career here as a parliamentary reporter and sketch writer. So, like Tiny Tim, let me close by saying, God bless us, everyone.
Bob Backman to wind up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to congratulate the Honourable Member for Berwickshire for finally getting her voice heard in this chamber. In addition to the 3 frontbench speakers, we've had 18 backbench speakers, which demonstrates the importance of this type of debate, where members can raise whatever subjects they choose. They've chosen to talk about their constituencies, their particular causes, their charities, and their families. And so I think that's a very important aspect of our parliamentary work and shows and demonstrates to the people out there that we represent how important they are to us. I'd like to correct the record, of course. I did refer earlier in my speech to the member for Stockton North, when I should have referred to the member for Brigg and Immingham. So I put that on the record straight away. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. I know that although this is a time when Parliament goes into recess, members of Parliament won't just be having a holiday, they'll be working hard on behalf of their constituents, and our constituents will value the fact of the work that we do. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah. And I get the opportunity to have the last word. Many members have mentioned family whilst I've been here. Can I take this opportunity to say Merry Christmas to our parliamentary family, making sure that we remember our doorkeepers, the sergeant, the clerks who keep me in order, the catering, the security people, and Godfrey, Margaret got a mention, but I would also like to pass on, although perhaps I haven't been today, a thank you to Kelly and Jackie in the hairdressers downstairs. The question is, as on the order paper, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.